Welcome to the Victorious Living Podcast. You're about to hear real stories of real people who have discovered the real hope of Jesus Christ. I'm Christy Overton Johnson, the founder and publisher of Victorious Living magazine. Since 2011, I've had the privilege of sharing the most amazing life stories. I never cease to be amazed at the life-transforming power of Jesus Christ. Today in our podcast, you're going to go deeper into these amazing God stories and hear from those who have overcome incredible odds and discover how they found a life of freedom. You can discover it too. I trust that you'll enjoy today's conversation between our host and our special guest. Thank you for listening, and be sure to share the hope you hear and the mission of Victorious Living.
Welcome back to the Victorious Living Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke, on the mic with Kim and Blaine Whitt. Thank you guys for joining us.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
I'm super thrilled to host you both on the Victorious Living Podcast. You guys have an incredible ministry and you guys have an incredible testimony. And I know that what we shared today is going to impact those behind bars and those that have family members behind bars and those that just need encouragement. So we are just super excited to partner with you guys and to offer the hope of Christ to those that are lost, and to ultimately share testimonies of, wow, look what God did. And that's ultimately how we overcome, right? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. So I'm super thrilled to share your testimony. Kim, thank you for hopping on with us today. We know that you have such a pivotal role in Blaine's life and in the ministry and everything you do. So we're very, very grateful that you were able to pop in and say hey with us today.
Thank you. I'm not going to stay long. I just want to give a shout out to the Victorious Living family and to the Xtreme SOULutions family out there that are listening to this throughout the country.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to be exciting recording today. And Blaine, I read some of your story in the Victorious Living magazine, and I know a lot of people have their hands on that magazine and have been encouraged by your story. So I definitely want to highlight just where you've been, and I know that you can empathize deeply with those that are struggling against their own darkness.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to step out now and turn this over to you guys.
All right, we'll see you soon.
So just kind of quick recap on a little bit of my story. It goes back a long way. But when I was young and coming up in a dysfunctional family, extremely dysfunctional family, a lot of violence and addictions. And I always say, if you look up the word dysfunction in the dictionary, I'm pretty sure our family tree is going to be in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. But, you know, our test is what turns into our testimony. And coming out of a very violent background, when I was younger, I ended up with an attempted murder charge. I won't go into all the details. That it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And it was obviously very traumatic. I had a 2-month-old baby in the house. My wife was traumatized by the whole event, and you know, all the police showing up in the front yard and detectives and so on and so on. And but that was really a part of my life back then. I mean, this is a very small snapshot of it, but that was a part of my life that has caused me to do what I do today. Because you used the word empathize a few minutes ago. And unless you've actually been in those shoes and you've experienced what it's like to have those handcuffs put on, and you feel your life flash before your eyes, like, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
Right.
And you got
and how did we get here?
In the street.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And not only how did we get here, that's pretty easy to answer that question. The big question was, how do you move forward? And so as we all know, the God we serve is an amazing God. And, you know, he knows the beginning from the end. And so fast forwarding, when I felt like the Holy Spirit was calling me to come into the prisons, it wasn't hard to connect with the population of men, their stories, their background, their history, the traumas in their life. And So it wasn't hard to connect at all. And to be honest too, Brooke, I don't even know how some of the men how they ever make it, how they even survive to get to prison because of what they've experienced in their childhood coming up.
Yep.
And so a lot of that is all tied together, as we know.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, the anger
oh,
and
I'm sorry.
the anger and like the hurt, like, and we all behave a certain way because of what we've been nurtured to behave. So it's like, yeah, there is that kind of nature nurture. Like we are born into sin naturally, but we're also
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
nurtured in a space. Like if you're in an environment that's extremely hostile and full of anger, and you're a little kid and when you're young, you have this like excited, vision for life and you're a sponge and, that's why Jesus says to have faith
Sure.
like a child, because it's just a simple mind. And when that simple
Right.
mind is being confronted with hate and anger and abuse and things that no child or adult should ever have to go through, when you're trying to reconcile that pain, you turn to anger, you turn to alcohol, you turn to drugs, you turn to
Right.
violence. And so, I've seen it too, like going into the prisons where you're just like, wow, like what you went through was an injustice to you. Like what
Right.
happened to you should not have happened to you. If you were abused by a family member sexually or physically, that's wrong. That should not have happened to you. Like period.
Absolutely.
And it's nasty and it's not of God, and so then it's like, not that you make excuses for, oh, well, that makes sense why you did X, Y, and Z. Like, no one should turn to violence or anything. But in our weakness, like, we all fall short, and we all like turn to things that aren't heavenly and aren't Christ-like. And so
Sure.
you really see that, I'm sure with your story, you meet the men and women in prison and you have like, with the Jesus response, where when Jesus responds in compassion, that word compassion is like from his gut. He feels like gravitating towards you and your weakness. And so I'm
Yeah.
sure and I don't want to steal your thunder because I want to keep, sharing your story, but I imagine with your story, when you're met with young men and women, old men and women that are in the prison system, you feel it in your gut. You're like, I know
Sure.
that feeling, that empathy that you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, absolutely, Brooke. One of the things that we teach emphatically in the prison, along with many things, but a human being literally becomes what you believe.
Mm.
It's our belief system. And when you're raised up in an environment that is dysfunctional, we'll just use that term, dysfunctional, and fill in the blanks, what that looks like for you, you end up in a situation in prison many times. And now you have literally become what you have believed or heard all your life. You're a loser, you're a failure. Or if you've grown up in poverty and that's all your family knows, it becomes generational. And so I would say most men that get in that situation were like me, and you don't know a way out. You don't know what you don't know. You don't even know what questions to ask somebody. If somebody came along the road and said, "Hey, I'm the Good Samaritan. I want to help you. What do you need?" You don't even really know how to answer that question because you're raised up in that environment, and the environment you're raised in is all you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one of the things we really teach. Romans says we're changed daily. Daily is a key word, by the renewing of our mind. And that word renewing, it's very helpful for me because it means it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. And so the men and women that may be seeing this, maybe even around the nation, I hope that's a tool that they can take, or a word of inspiration, that it's okay where you are right now as long as you don't stay there. As you said a minute ago, it's not an excuse. Nobody's given anybody the keys to the kingdom of excuses.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. You did what you did. You may be a byproduct of your environment, but now what? What do you do now with your life? How do you grow? How do you move forward? And how do you grow your vision? And I just shared with a group of men the other day, Brooke, that when it comes to vision, you will never be able to touch what you can't see.
Mm.
And if you can't see it first, you're not going to touch it at all.
Yep.
And that's what vision is. And again, when you're incarcerated and you're behind that razor wire and you have that state ID with a number, that becomes your identity. That's who you are. And so when the gavel dropped in the courtroom, for most men and women and youthful offenders, that was the end of vision. If you had any vision or aspirations for success at all, that ended it. And most men and women incarcerated think, just let me do my time. And then when I get done with my time, I'll pick up where I left off.
Right.
But I want to encourage all the viewers that your vision did not stop when that gate popped behind you and you walked in behind that razor wire. Matter of fact, capitalize, grow, learn, grab everything you can, grab all the resources you can, and stand on the promises of God that God says, I will restore everything the locusts have eaten.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just a great word. It's a great word of encouragement for the men and women, youthful offenders that might be distraught. You know, they're like, I can't go anywhere. I'm an inmate. We hear that all the time. Well, Pastor Blaine, I'm just an inmate. No, you're not just an inmate. You're a human being that has ideas and philosophies and goals and dreams and hopes and aspirations. And you can't let your sentence rob you of that victory,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, each person is created with natural born gifts, and like even just identifying some of the things you're good at, like whether you're behind bars or not, you can identify if you're a leader, if you're an artist, or if you're a musician, or if you're a singer, or if you're an athlete. There are so many things, like who you are, made in the image of God, doesn't change based on where you're at. And so
Oh, absolutely.
when you're in a space of, you're being stripped of things that, you're stripped of luxuries, you're stripped of warmth, when it's cold, or you're stripped
Right.
of different comforts. You really are in the prison system. You're being disciplined for something that you've done or been a part of,
Right.
or um and there could be a ton of things swirling around in your mind. Well, like, I shouldn't even be here, and I should, and all these things. And again, like, that's real. But in the same breath, it's like you have this opportunity, like you're saying, to really identify, okay, who does God say that I am when I get out of here, right? And not just like, can't wait to get out and just like not be here anymore, but like, what am I going to do? And we've had the privilege, between the magazine and this podcast, hosting exceptional men and women like yourself who are like, yeah, like there are some really great visions and planning that I saw God nurturing while I was behind bars. And now I'm outside seeing the fruition of all of those things. So, Blaine, maybe you can give us a couple stories with what you've witnessed, or generalizations of what you've seen, some of the people doing and cultivating outside of prison.
Yeah. So one of the things we strongly emphasize again behind the razor wire is you have to take the information, the classes that they're in, and there's a lot of them in our program. There's a lot of them, and it has to go from information to a revelation that becomes perspiration. So in other words, you have to put some grease behind it. You have to put some elbows behind it, and you have to focus on who God has created you to be and what He wants you to do. And let me say this real quick too. You cannot allow the prison to define your identity. And so many, I've been doing this for 20 years, so many people behind the wire, Brooke, allow that little ID card to become their identity. And just because you went to prison, that did not change who God created you to be. And so the way that we see that manifest on the outside of the wire is when men really truly grab a hold of this and they take all of the classes, serious, finances is one. Just for instance, we just talked to a man 2 days ago who graduated out of a program 5 years ago, or EOS out of prison 5 years ago, and still facing some struggles out there. But he said, Pastor Blaine, I applied every single thing that I learned, all the leadership training you did, and he was one of our top leaders. All the classes and financing was one, and how to restore your credit. And he literally took everything that he learned and applied it to himself personally. And right now, on the outside, he is absolutely killing it. He's paid off all of his fines. He's paid over $20,000 in fines.
Wow.
He has his driver's license. He just bought a brand new car. He's getting married next month.
Aw.
And it's because of the application of
Yeah.
information,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Application of revelation.
Right.
So that's just one of so many success stories we have of
I
men and
love
women
that.
coming out of prison.
And it's day by day. It's starting small, right? Like everything. So it's like you're not going to arrive overnight. This isn't a microwave dinner. This is you take it all in and you start little by little implementing things. You know, we've known that for years when it comes to weight loss. Like, you know, you can sit there and all you
Yeah,
want, try to jump through hoops, but we know what
yeah,
works, right? Eat well and work out and
yeah.
make small changes. And so I love that you guys have an environment that really celebrates the small victories, and then you're able to see the fruition of like the big victories.
Yeah,
Tell us a
absolutely.
little bit about your ministry, Xtreme SOULutions. So yeah, give us a little bit of background of what you guys do, just more practical
Okay.
steps.
What we do is pretty big, actually. We have 43 classes, I think,
Wow.
going on any given week. It's basically a 3-year program. It's designed for men that are going to go to the gate between 3 and 5 years. And we have designed the classes to fit within that window. And one of the reasons why we did that too, Brooke, is the Florida Department of Corrections will not look at an offender's re-entry as far as being successful until they've been out for 36 months. So
Okay.
there's a 3-year window that this individual has to really work hard and perform before they're ever recognized as a successful reentry. So we took that same 36-month philosophy, and I said, well, if it's good for them, it's going to be good for us. So we designed our program where it's 3 years. And so we go through everything, like I said, money management, how to restore your credit, parenting, marriage, anger resolution. I have one class that I teach. It's called Your Crime and the Ripple Effect. All things become new. And of course, all of our classes, all of them are all Christ-centered, biblical. They're all based on the Bible. But something that's very unique about our program, and I love, is that we welcome all faiths. You don't have to be a Christian to be in our program, because obviously God loved the world that He gave His Son, right?
While
And
we were
so we
still
don't.
sinners, Christ died. Yeah.
We're still sinners yet,
Yeah.
even still. And so, yeah, so that's a 36-month program. And then I know that a big portion of why we are successful, Christ, number one, is the center, but number two, it's all relational. Everything is about relationships. And so from the time a man walks through the doors of our dorm, we have our own dorm, F dorm, we have 202 beds. So the second a man walks through those doors, coming in with his bag of canteen and his books or whatever, he's new to our dorm, one of our guys is going to greet him at the door and immediately begin to find out, what are your needs? How can we help you? Do you need food? Do you need hygiene? And so they're just going to give that. It's a warm welcome when they come into our dorm.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
if you've been around prison for just a minute, you know that is absolutely not the norm. Matter of fact, most guys coming to our dorm are like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't even know what's happening here. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
immediately
it's a
somebody's
stark
going to give you a soup.
contrast.
Yeah, it
So
is a stark contrast.
for the men and women listening right now, how did they get access to this class? Is it only in certain places, or what's kind of the action steps?
Okay. Man, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that question too. Right now we're at Marion CI
Okay.
only. We were in 3 other prisons, and so we've kind of narrowed our focus. We're at Marion CI, and Marion right now is what they call an incentivized prison. So in order for an individual to come to this prison, they have to fit within the incentivized criteria, which means they have to be DR free. I think it's for uh, 12 months before they can qualify to be there. But they can go, no matter what prison they're in right now, they can go to their classification officer and put in a good adjustment transfer for Marion CI and specify that they would like to be in the reentry program for Xtreme SOULutions.
Okay.
And so that's basically how, that's the starting place for it right there.
Okay, awesome. No, I'm really glad that you were able to share that, because I know there's probably going to be questions, and it's definitely appealing um to be able to be in a space. And I love also that you highlighted, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not, just come join.
Yeah,
We're confident Jesus will meet you where you're at, because he's done that to all of us, and he is gentle and kind, and he's a good shepherd and knows where we're at all times. So I love that. Blaine, I like to finish each episode with this question, and it's a thought-provoking question, and it's doesn't have to have a one-word answer. It's a conversation. But over the course of your life, um, what has become your favorite quality about God?
Mhm. Well, that's a big one.
It's a big one.
Favorite
Yeah.
quality about
It's
God.
it's more
I,
like a 5-10 minute answer, not like a quick rapid fire.
yeah, yeah. I believe for me, um, it's God's ability to look at us for for who He created us to be, and not for what we've become.
Mm,
So He looks at us through the veil of the blood of Jesus.
mhm.
So I think the greatest quality is grace, because every day we we have to bathe in it.
Yep.
We have to be consumed by it. Again,
No, it's true. It's life changing to see yourself the way God sees you, and not for your
yeah,
circumstance, not for what has been spoken over you. I mean, words create worlds. We're creating the image of God, and God created the world by speaking. So how
yeah,
much, power is in our tongue or in other people's tongues, power of life and death. That's like, wow. Like, and don't we know it?
yeah,
If God is our Father and we're made in his image and he created life with his mouth, how much more can we do that? Because he's given us the Holy
yeah,
Spirit. And so it's a daily grind. It's a daily, discipline of just like if you teach principles of finances and you have to implement it, start small, right? It's the same thing with this. It's
true.
like, even if you don't believe that you are lovely, that you are kind, that you are beautiful inside and out, that you are generous, that you are patient, that you have all these qualities that like God intended us for, and created us to have. Even if you don't believe it because you've been told otherwise or you've behaved otherwise, you have to start you have to start speaking it, because the things that he has spoken over us is much different than what our family members, what our spouses, what our kids, what our, prison guards have spoken over us, like,
Sure.
cruelty, anything like that. Our own thoughts, think about an earworm of a song, you can hum a tune, it can be stuck in your head all day, and you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. What are the things that you're repeating? And I absolutely love that, because that is a quality of God that like is just will change your entire life, to know that he delights over you and sings songs over you and knows the thoughts in your head before they get there. That's an exceptional
And,
quality.
when you think about this, the world has a way of forging us into the world's image. And when you ask about a quality about God, what do you love? Is that God is continually saying, I love you, I created you, and you have some of my DNA in you. That is the quality that I've put in you. And God is constantly, instead of telling us how bad we are, he's constantly growing us up into his image.
Yep.
No matter what we do, no matter how bad we were that day, what the sin was that day, or how we didn't spend any time with God, God always comes back to center point and says, I love you.
Yep.
And I'm going to continue to grow you up in that. And I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to train you, and then be conformed in my image.
Yep.
And that's the beautiful thing about God.
Absolutely.
He's constantly conforming us in his image.
Yep. And if
That's
for
a
those of
beautiful
you who have heard this word sanctification, we just described it. So if you ever feel like you've been lost in like these big words, you know, that is the process of sanctification, of becoming more and more holy, sanctified, set apart. And you know, I've shared this before on the podcast. I have to be careful because I'll get super preachy and I'll take an hour. But our justification is us putting our faith in Jesus Christ. We are covered by the blood of the Lamb, and his blood is worthy to cover us from all of our sins. That is, we are being justified, justification. And sanctification is us transforming more and more into his image, and to look more like his son. And so, you know, when you sin, you don't lose your justification, your salvation in him. You know, we sin, we're humans, we make mistakes, whether you've been saved 2 minutes or, you know, 27 years. You know, we can make mistakes and we can sin and we can fall short all the time, but we are justified by him. And our sanctification is that process that Blaine's describing, and what Xtreme SOULutions provides a space to start small, to start in prison, to start now, start today, making these steps. And ultimately, you definitely need to be, you know, to save to be sanctified, but you don't have to be saved to go to Xtreme SOULutions. So just start the process, and you know, or if you feel like you're in a different state listening to this and you feel like you can't get access to this, you know, start your own little small group. You know, look for resources that your chaplain might have, and build your own little community to really go, all right, when I get out, and have that faith, have that life in your tongue. You know, when I start my business, when I'm reconciled with my family, when, and keep believing in that faith and keep making steps to create that community, which is exactly what Blaine and his wife, Kimberly, have, you know, given their life so diligently to do. And so, Blaine, thank you so much for joining us on the Victorious Living podcast, and just sharing, you know, your testimony and where God has taken you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much, Brooke.
Thank
God
you.
bless y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching our broadcast. Are you an incarcerated brother or sister who needs encouragement? Write to us at Victorious Living Correspondence, P.O. Box 2751, Greenville, North Carolina 27836, or email us at hope@vlmag.org. To view Victorious Living magazine in its entirety, please have your chaplain contact us at 352-478-2098, or email us through our website at vlmag.org. We are happy to provide our Victorious Living magazine free of charge in bulk, with or without staples.